great showing at the Ryder Cup. The Bryson DeChambeau find themselves at the top spot in this week's power ranking. Partially a result as the top two teams falling this week, but also the Brysons got to win themselves. Even with their RB2 Miles Sanders getting 2 carries the entire game, still finding a way to put up 124 points and pulling out the dub. Really like the outlook for this team moving forward, and they're safe here at number 1. The only undefeated team left finds himself at number 2 in the power rankings after continuing the streak of making trades, as we saw on Monday, adding a new receiver to the position that the management has been taking a lot of heat on ever since draft day. It'll be interesting to see if Ayuk helps the position or hurts the already hurting weakness of this team. Obviously, that's going to be the key moving forward, but has not hurt their team yet. They find themselves 3-0 and at number 2 in the power rankings. After a pedestrian week 1 and blowing his entire fab on the waiver wire, owners around the league unanimously thought this was the year Kevin finally goes off the rails. But he has responded and exploded back on the scene, and now the squad leads the league in points, the first team to top the 400-point threshold. Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett still put together the best trio of receivers in the league today. Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, consistent studs. And now, Trey Sermon, the leader of the running back room in the 49ers, really won't be able to find a hole in this squad. They find themselves at number 3. Second week in a row, Tony's boys slides down the rankings here to number 4. Funny what happens when an owner gets a little too cocky and suddenly thinks their backup tight end is an untouchable. Well, you're right, Johnny Smith is untouchable. That's because no one wants to be within a 10-mile radius of him, and this team just put up 85 points. Yet, somehow, wasn't one of the 2 worst performances of the week, and we'll get to those 2 teams later. But not panicking on the squad quite yet because of the receiver room. Really has a boatload of receivers here, and even though the running back room is extremely suspect and quite frankly abysmal with Dalvin Cook's injury, they can make plenty of moves with the receivers. Mike Williams sitting on the bench right now. It'll be interesting to see if a move is made there, but for those reasons, not panicking. He'll slide down to number 4, but won't go further than that for right now. Not a great showing, but not a terrible one either. Still a lot to like about my team. James White now injured. Probably helps out Damian Harris. Still have the best quarterback duo, so doesn't matter if I put Stafford on the bench. I'm still going to put out a guy that puts up 20 points. Many teams above my team looked worse than I did this week, so not going down. Can only move it up. I move up from number 6 to number 5. The early favorite for Drama Queen of the Year moves up from 8 to 6 after last week begging me to treat him like dirt and move him to the very bottom of the rankings. I refuse to, and this is exactly why. It's not a bad team. High-scoring team of the week. Sure, we know Clyde's still ass. He put up 100 yards, but he did this last year. Every 4 or 5 weeks or so, he's going to have a good performance. Don't really like him, but the rest of the team still has plenty of talent. DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, both great players. Allen Robinson is a good player, but yikes. Herbert, great player. Najee Harris, who knows, but he gets enough touches to be very relevant in fantasy. I still like this team, so they're going to sit here at number 6 for now. Experts say week 3 is really the most insightful week of the season. And the reason being because a lot of times what we'll see is that what happens in week 1 is the complete opposite of what happens in week 2. And week 3 gives us the opportunity to identify some trends and find out what's the truth behind these teams. What week 3 showed us is that the truth for this team is they're probably not very good. And that's why they're dropping the furthest in my rankings from number 1 all the way down to, where are we? Number 7, I think we're at. Yeah, number 7. And that's because week 3 was almost a carbon copy of week 1. Both weeks in the 80s. Things not looking good right now. Now, plenty of season to go. He's riding that Derek Carr and Las Vegas Raiders high. So things could continue that way. But very suspect to follow Derek Carr's lead. Mike Evans, is going to be very volatile. Calvin Ridley looking like a big disappointment right now. Sutton could have some upside there. Now KJ Hamler out for the year, but holes up and down the roster, and because of that, I need to drop him all the way down to number 7. Yikes! That was dreadful. 62 points this week. Please spare us all and hope we never have to see a performance like this again for the rest of the year. Spoiler alert, we will. Someone will be in the 60s again. I almost guarantee it. But these power rankings are not just a one-time snapshot. I try to take into account, everything that's happened so far and also my outlook. So while many might be crying for this team to drop all the way down to the bottom 2, I'm not going to do it. Alvin Kamara, Chris Carson, still probably the best running back duo in the league. Deontay Johnson, if he's back, he's a consistent, 12 to 17 points. Cole Beasley looks like he has more value this year than ever before, and Hawkinson usually delivers week in and week out. I mean, the team is just really not bad. That's the issue. I know they looked horrible this week, but I don't think they're a bottom-tier team, so only drop them one spot to number 8. Second year in a row, this owner is going to be spending the entire year desperately trying to dig himself out of a massive hole. After starting 0-6 last year, this owner is halfway there to that mark. But there is more reason to be positive. Now, not saying this is going to be a great year for Singer. Not saying this is a good team. Of course not. They're 0-3. But there is a reason to be positive. This is the only team in the league to score 115 points, at least 115 points, all 3 weeks. Crazy enough, the only one finds himself 0-3. Obviously, defense is a huge problem for him right now. But Jonathan Taylor needs to get going. Now, Zeke had a nice homecoming 2-touchdown game, almost 3 touchdowns, so Singer showing he's the only owner who knows how to work with that habitual domestic violence abuser. But Zeke needs that consistently, or else this team is screwed with 2 very disappointing running backs. Really, success is going to come down to that. But for right now, have him sitting at number 9. For the first time this year, this franchise is finally going to receive some actual analysis from me instead of a dude puking over a bench. And really, it's because of Saquon. Welcome back, Saquon. Looking better than he's looked this year. Still not back to the old Saquon, but definitely looking more agile, more athletic, like he's comfortable with his knees. And it's much needed because as Saquon comes back, Tyreek leaves. Second week in a row scoring single digits after that outburst, 35-point outburst week 1. If he can get Saquon and Tyreek to come back and start being consistent, this team actually has some firepower, especially with Odell back in the mix. Only receiver there with Landry down. Devonta Smith, I still like. And somehow Peyton Barber's having an out-of-body experience. So still some positive outlook for this team. And so I rose him to number 10.